Hi everyone, this is Vanessa with Vanessa Coons Photography. I'm here today because I wanted to show you guys an edit of this image. Um, I, a lot of photographers dread having to remove a lot of scars or blemishes from especially toddlers and stuff, but this is such a beautiful portrait. I hate to just dismiss this image just because I didn't want to take the time to really edit and get some of the blisters around her mouth and stuff. So I wanted to take this time to share that with you. So this particular image I took at a photographer's retreat with Jodylyn Photography, Jodylyn Buckles, and Sarah Cornish with My Four Hens Photography. Super fun retreat. It was my first retreat I've ever done, and so I was excited to be with a bunch of creatives and artists, and really enjoyed that. So definitely hope you check out their retreats and stuff and workshops. But this image, I'm going to go ahead and I do basic exposure adjustments and highlights and stuff. I've already done that already with this image. I'm going to go ahead and take this into Photoshop because that's where I do a lot of my really skin retouches and final edits to the images. So I will do that right now. Export this image out to, okay, in Photoshop. So give this a second to load into Photoshop. What I'll do is I typically will spend time just removing most of her scars, if you will, or blisters that are large to take those out by using the this patch tool. So I'm going to make a layer, and I do this because I feel safe to make all my changes here. If I don't like it, I can always just delete the layer and start all over again versus having to go back in history and go to the original image. I do that periodically, you'll see throughout my editing process here. So what I'm going to do first is just, again, zoom in and take my patch tool and take a lot of her larger blisters here um, out first. And then I'll go back and I'll apply an action to this to really smooth out her skin and take a lot of the coloring from it as well. So I'm not too worried about some of the little dots here and there, especially the redness part. I will work on that in a little bit. So just going around here, taking all of the dry skin, the larger pieces from here, around her nose. Also, this has a little bit of focus issues. It's a little soft around her eyes here, so I will always go back and do some sharpening to clear that up. So I will do that later. Just let me get this here. We're almost done. Okay, just wanted to get the large pieces out. The other thing that I noticed is that her hair is going into her eyebrow here, but because my eye is drawing to this because it's really bright, I want to remove it. Otherwise, I wouldn't necessarily remove it because it's going through her eyebrow. But because it's so bright, just draws my eye to that point. So I'm just going to kind of patch that out. And I will always go back here and do a little bit of cloning just to make sure that it looks natural. So do that here. Okay. So majority of it is out, so I'll go back and do some patching a little later. I'm sorry, cloning. So I'm gonna go ahead and not sure what's happening here. I'm gonna go ahead and flatten my image. So right click, flatten image, or left click, however you guys have it set up on your clicks. And the other thing I want to mention is I'm using a Wacom tablet here that I'm using instead of using my mouse. I highly recommend that. It took a little bit of getting used to, but it's definitely worth it because you can get right in with your pen to really get to the details and stuff versus a mouse. Ergonomically, it just wasn't working for my wrist. So, but I highly recommend that. I'm going to go ahead and go down to my actions. And the action that I'm going to use is the Newborn Perfect Skin Base, which is basically just removing some of the scarring or what have you on her face. And this is from LSP. This is I'll link that into the video here so that you guys can get access to that. But I just love it. Just a quick little thing here. So I'm gonna play that. Okay, and then I'm gonna use my brush and just adjust it just a tad. And I'm just gonna go over some of those areas, and it's gonna take a lot of it away. Again, this is not what I use to smooth out the skin. It's just taking a lot of those blemishes from her face in a quick swoop. So, and that's the reason why I first started off with just removing the larger pieces. I just want to move some of the little ones here um, with this action. So just getting a little bit of it, not too much. See if I can fix all that here. I'll fix a little bit of that. Okay. Try and get some of her dry spots. I might have to go back again and patch that a bit, but I think this is good. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. And then I'm going to go to Foundation Light. This is by Totally Rad. Presets and Actions. And I love this one because it's just really light. I can make adjustments later as far as the intensity of the smoothing. So I'm just going to smooth out her skin here. I always, go just right underneath the eye. Try not to make sure that I'm not smoothing out her eye. Just love her little cute little dimple there too, so it's so cute. And I'm just gonna go down here and just kind of get down below her lip line. Just making sure I go right there next to her lip. So I'm also gonna just kind of touch up her ear here too. And then obviously her neck. So there's consistency in the skin smoothing. So what I like to do is just kind of check to see where my brush was being applied. So I usually hit the back hyphen, if you will, or forward slash, whatever, however you say that on the keyboard, which brings this up so that I can see what is not red is basically where I've already applied my brush. So I'm just going to go over the areas where I didn't smooth out some of her skin. Okay. So I like that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, now that I see that, I'm just going to adjust it just a bit. It's at 40% opacity, so it's by default. So I just want to lower it just a bit to about 35. It just feels like it's not so entirely smooth, but it just gives me enough. So I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten this. And I usually will use the deblotching, but I think for right now, I think I'm fine with this. Okay, and so then I'm going to go back here. I'm going to make another duplicate layer. And I'm going to try to do some cloning around her eyebrow here. So I'm just going to zoom in just a tad. And then I'm going to just do some cloning here, just so that I can get some consistency with her skin tones here. Okay. Okay. Oops. All right. Just going to go back here, take that off. All right. Going to go back here just a bit here for this one. That didn't look so good. I'm just going to have to play. I actually typically will lower my flow here to about 20, so it's not so harsh. But it's not right. A little lower here to about 8. Okay. I'm just going to go back here just a bit just to kind of clean this up a bit. Okay. Alrighty. I think that's good. I could probably do a little bit more. And make sure I'm on the right layer. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to flatten that. And I'm going to go back and do some sharpening. So I have the Sharpen Slide Opacity by LSP. I'm going to apply that. And that just overall gives a sharpening at 40%, but I usually will increase that to about 80 for the overall look. Um, so I'll just turn that off and on, just slight sharpness. I'm going to flatten that one. And then I'm going to go back to selective sharpening action that I got from um, what is it called? Great Gatsby. They have a sharpening, so I just go back to the eyes and just apply a little bit of sharpening to the eyes to kind of really make those pop a bit there. Okay, as you can see, it was soft. Now it's a little bit better there. So I'm going to flatten that. I'm going to change, kind of tone down the saturation on her lips. So what I do is I pull up the adjustment layer, hue, saturation. I'll go into my red channel, and then I get my little dropper here just to kind of drop it where it's going to pull exactly the colors that I want to change. So I'm going to lower the saturation a bit, maybe about 7%. That looks like it's good. So it's applying it to the whole picture. So what I do is once I find where I like it, I will invert the mask, and I'll go back to my brush here and just apply it where I want to around her lips here, just to take down that saturation a bit. Okay. And I can always go back into that channel and then adjust it some more. So as you can see, I go all the way down. Obviously that's too much, but just to kind of show you where it's at right there. So I'm going to go just a bit, probably about, it was already adjusted actually. So I'm going to leave that. Okay, it's just very subtle, but to me, it proves to be better. So, all right. So the other thing that's drawing my attention to this photo is mom's arm. So what I will do is I'll do some cropping in here. So I'm going to get my crop, and I'm just going to bring it in just a little bit closer, not to get, all of mom's hand out, but just enough to do some, I just want to make sure I get this, just to get her face here too, kind of sticking within the left side of the third. Apply that. So I'm going to try and get rid of mom's arm still. Um, just make a duplicate layer here. And what I'll do here is I'll go in and get my clone tool. Again, I'm gonna make this probably about 50%. I don't want too harshness, but just really soft and settle. So I'll just go along here and clone off some of this of her arm here. Okay. I could also use the patch tool, but I just wanted to kind of blend in a little bit of this. So as you can see, it's a little bit duplicate. Obviously, this wrinkle here is really drawing attention. So what I do is I just get go back in with my patch tool and apply this. Just kind of take some of this off so my eye doesn't draw to this necessarily. Take some of this wrinkle out here. So you kind of just have to play with it to see what looks natural. Obviously, this looks mushed a bit here. So, in fact, this is a bright area. So probably what I would do is come in here and just kind of clone a little bit of the darks area and bring it up so that my eye is not really going, because it's in line with her face. So I just want to make sure I take a little bit of the darkness out. Okay. Clean this up a bit. Okay. I think I'm good with that. Okay. So here's the before and here's the after on that. So that's what I did. And what I think I'll do is I'll just do a little bit of brightness on her eyes. I'm just going to bring it out my adjustment layer, bring out the levels, the midpoint here. And then I will invert the mask and then come back to my brush and then just kind of pop it right there just to kind of brighten her eyes a bit. So it just kind of gives a little bit of brightness to her eyes. So I like that. All right. And let me just go to show you guys what the before and after is. Go back to my history here, make a snapshot. This just takes a snapshot of your current edit. So I'm going to go back to the original. There's the original, and there's the after. Original and the after. So I think I'm good. If you have any questions, just leave some comments in the chat, and I will try to respond to you guys. Hope you enjoyed this edit.